Welcome back, everyone. In the previous lecture, we learned about comparison operators. Now we're going to discuss how to chain together different comparisons. And we can do this with the use of what are called logical operators, and they allow us to combine comparisons. And the key logical operators we're going to be discussing here is the AND keyword, the OR keyword, and the NOT keyword. So let's explore how to use these keywords, as well as chaining comparisons without the use of these keywords. All right, let's imagine that we wanted to have a condition that executed when we actually did two comparisons. For example, we wanted to check if 1 was less than 2, and we also wanted to check at the same time if 2 is less than 3. So you can imagine that instead of these direct numbers, we'd be using variable names that maybe get changed somewhere else in our code, but to keep things simple, we're just using direct integers. So to chain these two together, what we could do is do the following. We could say, is 1 less than 2, and is 2 less than 3? So when we run this, we get back true because this chain comparison is true and this comparison is true. If we were to change one of these, so for example, if I switch this to ask is 2 greater than 3, we get back false because even though this first one is true, this second one is no longer true. Now you could use this sort of chaining together, but alternatively, you can use a logical operator. And the one you would use to basically rewrite this code here is the AND keyword. So instead of the following from above, I could say is 1 less than 2, and notice that syntax highlighting there, is 2 greater than 3. And that returns back false as well. And I could switch this to be less than, and then that returns true. So all the AND keyword says is, hey, is what's on my left true, and is what's on my right true? And remember, these could be any sort of comparisons. So I'm going to show you another example. We could do something like, is H equal to H, the string, and is 2 equal to 2. We run that together and we get back true. Sometimes when people are writing out their code, they like to add in a little more organization by kind of wrapping these comparisons in parentheses, and you'll see me do that from time to time. For some people, this is a little more readable. For others, it's less readable because you're inserting more stuff. It's up to you whether you want to use these or not. There are certain libraries that we'll talk about later on that do require you to have these parentheses. But for now, it's basically up to you. If you think with the parentheses more readable, go ahead and use them. If you like it that it's a little kind of sleeker without the parentheses, you can go ahead and do that as well. But just keep in mind the AND keyword says it's what is on my left true and is what's on my right true. And then it returns a Boolean based off that. Okay, so pretty straightforward so far with the AND keyword. As you may have suspected, there's also an OR keyword that we mentioned previously, and that just needs one of the conditions to be true. So again, we'll use numbers. We'll say is 1 equal to 1 or is 2 equal to 2. So we run that and we get back true. However, the OR only needs one of these conditions to be true. It just needs the one on the left or the one on the right to be true. So I can show you what I mean by that. I'm going to make one of these definitely not true, so 100 is not equal to 1. But if I run this again, notice my cell count, it still says it's true because it just needs one of them to be true. So is this statement true or is this statement true? And if we make them both false, then finally we get back the false. So that's the basics of chaining comparison operators with the AND keyword and the OR keyword. And I would recommend that you use these keywords instead of doing something like this because, in my opinion, they're a little more readable. So we always want to stress readability in our code. It's especially good because later on, maybe you come back to your same code a month later, you're going to want to be able to easily read the code. So we just discussed AND and then the OR keyword logical operators. I finally want to discuss the NOT keyword. So to round out our discussion by showing you an example of the NOT keyword, that's NOT for not, it basically just asks you to return the opposite Boolean of what you just did. So I will construct this with an example first. So 1 is equal to 1. We know that's true. If we wanted to get, for some reason, the opposite Boolean off of that, I could do not, and then in parentheses, 1 equal to 1, and it'll return back false. Technically, you don't need these parentheses here, so you could just do something like this, not 1 equal to 1, and you also get back false. It's up to you what's more readable. But all not is doing is it's asking for the opposite Boolean of whatever was returned here. So for example, just to show you again, let's say 400 greater than 5,000. So that's false, but if I put a not in front of it, it's going to now ask for the opposite. So it's going to say true. So not sometimes useful when you're trying to write out your logic. It'll be a lot more obvious when we begin discussing control flow in the next section of the course, but keep this keyword in mind. At first you won't be using it too often, but later on you're going to see that sometimes bits and pieces of code become more readable with the not keyword instead of using something like the opposite, which would have been just is 1 not equal to 1 there. All right, that's the basics of logical operators. Again, main things to realize here is the AND keyword needs both conditions to be true. The OR keyword needs just one or the other to be true. We'll see you at the next lecture.